Hey you guys, so we're gonna go over sine and cosine today. So the first thing I want to do is go over the basics of the right triangle. So if we have a right angle right here, and I want to look at this angle right here, then from here, this would be considered the opposite side. This one would be considered the adjacent side. And of course, opposite of the right angle would be your hypotenuse. There's a couple different ways you can memorize it. I'll show you the way that I memorized it in high school. It's a little old school, but I like it. So I remembered it as Oscar had a heap of apples, so count them. That is how I memorized it when I was in high school. Some of you guys memorized this SOHCAHTOA. That is completely fine as well. Whichever way works for you to remember that sine of an angle is equal to opposite over the hypotenuse. Cosine of an angle is equal to adjacent over the hypotenuse. And tangent of an angle is equal to opposite over adjacent. So whichever way works for you is completely fine for me. So one thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about the sine and cosine on a coordinate plane. So that's the first thing, the next thing I would like to talk about. So I want to make the first one pretty simple. So we're just going to use a point P and we're going to label it 3, 4. So that point would be somewhere like right here. Okay, so if you remember, this is your X, this is your Y. So we're going a distance of 3, and then we're going 1, 2, 3. Oops, those are a little off. Okay, to get that ordered pair. So if I was to connect this and make a triangle, and now I'm going to erase those tick marks so I'll always use the triangle. This would be my right angle. This would be our central angle that we are looking at. So the X value would be this length right here. So therefore our Y value will be our length going up. Okay, so how can I figure out what this other side would be right here? Well, hopefully you said it. That is our Pythagorean theorem. Okay, you are used to x squared plus y squared equals c, or sorry, you're not. Hold on, let me refer to what you're used to. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. But we are changing that to be x squared plus y squared equals r squared. So this will be your x, this will be your y, this will be your r. That will be your radius of making that circle. Okay, please remember that that r is always positive. Okay, it's a radius, it's a length, it's a distance, whichever way you want to look at it. Okay. So if we were to do Pythagorean theorem on this, we would have, I'll squeeze it over here, 3 squared plus 4 squared equals r squared. If you do all the math, we will find out that this is a 5. So from this, I can be able to ask you what is sine of our angle. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So that would be 4 over 5. cosine of the angle would be adjacent over hypotenuse, so that would be 3 over 5. Okay, but would you be able to do it if I changed it to a different quadrant? So if I came over here, okay, and I told you that this ordered pair was negative 3, 4, okay, it doesn't matter that it's a negative 3 and a positive 4, the radius would still be a 5, okay? So this would be a length of a negative 3, and this would be a positive 4. So if I asked you now for what was sine of our angle, you would still tell me 4 over 5. If you asked me for cosine of my angle, then that would be a negative 3 over 5. Okay, so I hope that you're catching a few things here. Okay, first thing I want you to notice is that the 3 and then the 4, the 3 relates to the x and the 4 relates to the y. So we could change this to say that cosine of an angle would be equal to x over r, and sine of an angle would be equal to y over r. And that's going to be one of the quickest ways for you to memorize it. If not, you can always draw the triangle. So if I was to make one down here, this would be a negative 3, negative 4. So let's just talk about what's happening here. Would the cosine be a positive or negative? Well, it's going to be a positive. A negative. Sorry. Let me correct myself. Okay. Then our sine will be a negative as well. Okay, what would happen to this one over here at a positive 3, negative 4? Our cosine of the angle would be positive, and then sine of our angle would be negative. So I'll kind of show you a way that I like to think about it. And here's the first one. So let's look at cosine. Okay, cosine deals with x. So if we're on this side, it's going to be positive. If we're on this side, it's going to be negative. So that means cosine here would be positive, cosine here would be positive, cosine over here would be negative, and cosine over here would be negative because that's dealing with the x. Well, then if you go and you look at the y, okay, that means that here down bottom would be your negative, and then up here at the top, that would be your positive. So if you want something to kind of help you there, I would just go write sine positive, sine positive, sine negative, and then sine negative. And hopefully that will help you memorize where they would be positive and negative at. So let me show you what you're going to have to do for some of your examples for your homework. Okay, so it wants you to find the exact values of sine and cosine, and they also want you to sketch the reference angles. So basically all it's wanting you to do is draw a coordinate plane. Go sketch where that ordered pair would be. Okay, so we already know this is our x, so this is our length here. Remember, your reference angles always come out from the origin. And then this would be a negative 6. So the thing that we're missing here is our radius. So let's go find that. So we will do 3 squared plus negative 6 squared equals r squared. So we would have 9 plus 36. Add together 45. Square root that. It would be a 9 times 5. So our radius would be 3 square root of 5. So now that we've done that, we just need to go find our sine or cosine. So we'll do cosine first since it is a x value. So x is 3 over 3 square root of 5. So this is where I mentioned if you have a calculator, that's great. If you don't, you got to know how to do radicals quick. So 3's cancel, but if you have 1 over square root of 5, that will change to square root of 5 over 5. So there is our answer for cosine. Remember that you cannot have a square root in the denominator, so you have to multiply by that. So we'll do our sine of an angle. Sine would be equal to -6 over r, because that's our y value. That would give us a -2 over the square root of 5. Well, remember, we can't have that square root of 5. So therefore, sine of the angle would equal -2 square root of 5 over 5. And there's the answer for that one. Okay, so when you have those radicals, you got to make sure you simplify them. And if you're still having issues with it, just make sure you come see me in class and we will work on simplifying those radicals. Okay, the next one is saying -5/12. So just think about where that would be. So that would be right here. Okay. So we know that this is -5. We know that this is 12. If you knew your Pythagorean triples, you would automatically know what r is. But in case you don't, let's go find it. It's 12 squared plus -5 squared equals r squared. So we have a 144 plus 25 equals r squared. So that's a 169 and then 13. So our radius is 13. So now we just need to go answer our cosine. So cosine is x. So that's a -5 over 13. We're good. Sine is our y. So that is a 12 over 13. And we are good. And I went ahead and wrote those with the same colors. Now remember, you can pause this video at any time, go back and play it. Sorry, my voice is a little hoarse. I guess that's coming back to school. Okay, so here the problem's going to tell you that it's in quadrant 1. It's going to give you a fraction. You have to know that cosine is what again? X over r. So this is x. This is r. So we have to figure out what y is. So we would go 13 squared has to equal y squared plus 12 squared. So 169 equals y squared plus 144. Subtract. And therefore you get 25. And then you square root that and you get a 5. So this would be our 5. So now what it's asking you to do is tell me what sine would be. So sine would be 5 over 13. Okay, so here's the video. I will not be posting the notes because you'll have to watch the video to get the notes. But I will go ahead and give you your homework. Or actually, just go to Google Classroom and get the homework in case other people watch this video. Hopefully this helped. If not, have your questions ready for tomorrow.